Yes. No,
Oh,
okay.
we are.
Okay,
I'm
okay,
sorry.
no, I'm doing this now. Okay.
Sorry, we're on.
Okay.
No. So I didn't realise we had started.
The consummate professional. See the little light in the corner there? That's us, my friend. Away we go.
I'm a professional person in the studio. Welcome to Freedom Fridays. I am the better-looking version of Aaron Malloy, presenting Derek Whitaker, Aaron Malloy and his sexy legs, and Travis, who's not quite on camera yet.
He is now.
And here's Dan Worthington coming in from sunny Utah.
Great to see you guys. Are you ready for a big show?
Well, the big time's in the studio finally. So I have to say, I can't get past those legs, Aaron. Like they are a massive distraction.
These are the greatest way of me showing the world my Indian culture.
There you go.
It's really funny you're sitting there next to a black man.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we're working on it.
I was talking to somebody yesterday, last night, and to be fair, I had a few drinks.
Right.
And she'd been to India, and so I'd asked something, and she looks at me, she goes, "That's pretty racist." And I said, "You know, I'm Indian, right?" She's like, "Are you?"
Oh, I don't know. I had a moment today, though. I was coming along into the studio, and this driver's weaving all over the road, and I just thought, it's got to be a bloody Indian.
Yeah.
Got up beside him. It was a bloody Indian. There you go. Oh, look, it's okay.
You stereotypist.
I know. Look, because I am clearly the stereotypical Indian man, right? Let's face it.
Now let's have a crack talking about race. I think we should have a crack at Travis.
Why not?
Because we are always whinging about the displaying of other countries' flags in our country. And have a look at him over there in Vietnam with the Aussie flag, mate. Not on. I need to put the Vietnamese
It
flag.
gets better. We have a Great Britain Union Jack cushion as well on the other side of the couch.
Oh, come on.
Anyway.
How dare they steal the corner of our flag?
Hey, Shaq. Sorry, we've got thunderstorms, so if you hear thunder, it's not me farting. Just something that I thought is really, really funny.
Well, right.
So I haven't had a chance to tell you this yet, Shaq. So obviously, before I came to Vietnam, I did get a chance to catch up with the Howard side of my family, so my dad's side of the family. I found out what my nationality is. You don't love this.
This is shocking.
He's Russian.
Polish and German.
The internal conflict. Look at this.
So does that mean I'm allowed to hail taxis now?
You can. Yes.
Well, the Polish side of your family won't like that too much, right?
Yeah.
That's why I got to do it with my right hand, not my left.
Oh, yes. Make sure you use the third mic. There we go. All right. So we get into the show proper. I'm going to give that a go. Okay. Welcome to Freedom Fridays. What a bunch of people we have here. This is why it's gone so pear-shaped so quickly. I want to thank Dan, always all the way there in the USA, mate. What's
wrong with my intro? I already did all this.
I know, but I'm fixing it.
You know, all that other stuff's not get cut out, don't you?
No, it's not. We don't do editing much around here. We don't do censorship. Sometimes we have to do editing. There's a difference. Hey, Jan, what's going on in the US at the moment, mate, that's jumping out?
Well, I tell you, there's a whole list of things that Trump was able to accomplish over the last couple of weeks. In fact, Travis and I were talking about it, and it's the list is very, very long and very, very impressive. I think that the Democrats are crapping themselves over the many things that he's getting done. He's done more in 100 days than Biden did in 4 years. Really, I mean, I didn't take much to outdo Biden, but no. And then there's Biden. Now Biden has prostate cancer and is supposed to be pretty aggressive and that kind of thing. But I think it's
they said that it's reactive. It's a hormonal cancer. So although it's aggressive, it possibly can be treated. Now, look, I never wish ill will on anybody or any politician, but I mean, thank goodness that Donald Trump did win the election.
Yes,
and that Biden dropped out, because what a mess that would be. We were talking about that on the way here. I think that if Kamala Harris had have won, that's not the end of the United States. We just wouldn't have liked the policies, like we don't like the Labor Party policies here at the moment. But, the countries will survive these things. It's a pendulum that swings back and forth.
No.
But had Trump have actually been assassinated, if any of those assassination attempts had worked, I really don't know how the United States would have dealt with that. I think that would have been
I actually disagree with you on that front. I think that if
Disaster.
Kamala had won, it would have been the end of the United States as we know it. I mean, like right now, we're living in Australia, and the Labor Party got in again and increased its amount of seats. And I don't see this country the way I saw it a month ago or whatever it was. I see this country as definitely something that's taken a downward spiral.
Look, I don't disagree with that, but I don't think it's something that's not recoverable from. As I said,
I agree with
back
you.
and forth, right?
Yeah,
I think the global influence of the United States is a lot bigger comparatively speaking to Australia, unfortunately.
No doubt.
It's worth remembering as well that, Albo, once again, Albo won the election with only, a third of the vote. So two-thirds of people didn't vote for him.
That's right.
All right. And what is also interesting is, when they look at political numbers, a 5%, 10% swing seems like such a big number. But you take California. Everyone says California is a really strong Democrat area.
Yep.
But it's 60-40. Right?
Really?
So if you get 10 people in a room, you got 10 random friends from California, 6 of them are going to be Democrats, 4 of them are going to be Republicans. It's not that big a difference when you put it in those terms. So let's take this last election in Australia. Yes, Albo and the Labor Party won, a huge amount of seats. They really did, right? And the Liberal Party did an atrocious job. And we'll get into that later when we talk about Susan Lay's appointment. I just don't get it. But even with that being the case, on a two-party preferred basis, the vote's 55-45. Right? It's not an insurmountable swing. It's not as though all Australians are like, we're rooting for the Labor Party. Almost half of Australia on a two-party preferred basis is going for one side, and almost half is going for the other.
The scary thing is, as far as the Greens' influence, obviously we know changed over the last election, but the Teals, that really concerns me. I was at an event on Saturday night in the most liberal of liberal places you could imagine. Okay, I'm right there in the middle of Curtin at the Cottesloe Surf Club.
No. Cottesloe's so Cottesloe's right. Cottesloe's liberal. Yeah, well, Dalkeith Nedlands has gone teal. I just don't.
Well, no, the whole lot's pretty much gone teal now.
Oh, Cottesloe wouldn't.
When you talk,
not really. No, if you look at the stats, Teal's lost seats a lot.
Yeah.
What I'm going to get
they lost nearly half their seats.
The car park is full of Teslas with Cheney stickers on it, okay? And I honestly, I've never wanted to go and unplug things so more often in my life. But anyway, no, it really scared me a bit because exactly that, the blue areas and the amount of, I had some great conversations with people, and most people were generally centre-right. It just concerns me that I'm filled with a room full of centre-rights, a couple of absolute left-wing lunatics who were really strong on their thoughts. They had a lot of feelings, no facts, just lots of feelings. But yeah, just to see the change in the whole thing, it was.
So I think the biggest issue that the Liberal Party has in Australia, and to a degree the Republicans have sort of had this issue as well, prior to Trump getting involved, is that if you're a centre-right party, you always have to try to contain the conservative wing.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
What's happened, though, is that Dutton, in his attempt to become, to be moderate, went to the left.
He did.
And what I think he's missed, and Liberal Party strategists have missed, is that moderate people, I consider myself to be reasonably moderate, eccentric, but moderate. So
there's a line in that.
There's things like gay marriage and things like that. I don't care. Whatever you want to do in your own bedroom. These things don't bother me, right? So I don't want to see conservatives, no offense to you, Derek, I don't want to see conservatives
labels, right?
come in with their religious values and just, get upset about the life of Brian and all that sort of stuff, the Monty Python.
Look, he's just a naughty boy, okay?
He's not a Messiah, he's just a naughty boy. But I don't want to see conservatives do that, right? It's annoying to me.
How do you get that?
However, I also don't want to see, no funding for our education and healthcare and all that sort of stuff. And so there's a way to be centre-right without being without being on the left. And what they've done is disinformation bill. The overwhelming majority of Australians oppose that. So what do the Liberals do? They decide, you know what, let's support it.
Yeah.
What the hell is wrong with you? And that's the problem. And I think this is what's happened with the Republicans in the US. For all the talk about different people being rhinos, like Liz Cheney and Paul and all the others, really, it's Trump that's the rhino. Right, the MAGA crowd and his supporters are not traditionally Republican. They're disenfranchised, disaffected Democrats.
Agreed.
And centre left and centre right people that have gone enough. And that's what I think we need to see here in Australia. And Dutton wasn't able to do it. And Susan Lay's not going to be able to do it.
Oh, well, Susan Lay, I mean, look, I look at there's a positive to her being put in that position. Okay, there is one. She's not going to last. That's the absolute big positive, right? Like she's just committed political suicide. If you look at all the history going back, anyone in that position, it's very much they don't ever go on to become prime minister.
I think the Liberal Party would need her to resign.
Pardon?
The Liberal Party would need her to resign. They can't push her out because she's a woman.
That's right.
So they're not going to be able to push her out. So she decides not to resign.
Privately, they can absolutely give her the biggest shove off the end of the jetty.
We saw what happened with that with Moira Deeming.
Yeah, spot on.
Yeah, so she just sued the shit out of him and won because she's a woman.
Yeah.
So they can't push her out because she's going to record everything. It's not end up in the court case and it's going to make it even worse. So, no, she's got the Liberal Party by the short and curlies, and it's the Liberal Parties that don't get absolutely screwed over worse than what the Democrats are getting screwed over in America at the moment because they've put themselves into an undefendable position. They keep backing the 20% on 80-20 issues.
Yeah.
So, like, I have no idea why they did it. So
the Democrats in the US, I think it's more than just their policies, right? I think they've lost the respect of people.
True.
Right.
Spot on. Because they keep picking the 20% issues.
20 years ago, you could actually, even if you vehemently disagreed with their political positions or their policies, you could have some respect for the Democrats, right? I don't think it's very easy to respect them today. I think the way that they conduct themselves, just their general behavior and some of the issues that they back. And what was this thing, Dan, where Cory Booker and, the high-ranking Democrats sat on the stairs singing songs and all this sort of crap? Like,
Kumbaya Central.
Who are you going to win over with that stuff?
Well, if you haven't got any of the House, you don't have any control of any of the government levels. Well, that's your only option, to sing Kumbaya on the steps.
Or have a taxpayer-funded trip down to El Salvador.
That's right.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, you got to support these MS-13 members.
Look, I want to correct something. Okay, they do not have tattoos that say that. It doesn't say that. Okay,
to be fair, the way that Donald Trump said that, it looked pretty shit. It's like Pam Bondi when she was like. And the Daily Show ripped her for this, and she deserved it. She looks at the media and she goes, "Are you ready for this, media? We took 10 million tablets off the fentanyl tablets off the street."
Yep.
And then she looks at the media and she goes, "And that saved. Are you ready for this? 250 million lives."
Oh, come on, how's that gone? Hang on, you may have moved the decimal point a little bit there.
Whoops.
Oops. And you know what? Everybody steps on it occasionally. We're not all eloquent like Biden was. No.
Well, she is a blonde, so.
She's awesome. I'm in love. I think I tell you what, between her and press secretary, I'm in trouble. I'm moving to the US. Too good.
She's too old for me, but Christy Noem, I reckon, is.
Which one's that one?
She's the governor. Well, is she still the governor, or is she not the governor now? She's taken.
Well, not now. No. Now that she took the seat,
yeah. So she was the governor of South Dakota.
Oh, very what we would call it. She was a boisterous blonde. We'll call her. Is that the one?
No. She's got long brown.
I got the one then.
Okay. But she would have been, like, in my personal opinion, she was in the front seat to become the VP.
Right.
And then she started telling everyone that she shot a dog.
Oh,
and she met Kim Jong-un, and it was like,
the dog deserved it. Let me tell you.
Hey, she said that was based on the advice given from the advisors who ran the Liberal campaign here in Australia.
Yeah, probably.
Right up there for talent.
Well, what's interesting is Tulsi Gabbard has come out and said that the Democrats have put forward a proposal that anybody who's convicted of a felony should not have the Secret Service's protection.
Really?
So they're trying to lower the guard, so to speak, and just saying these were bogus claims in the beginning, and certainly an attempt to have him worse, hopefully not assassinated, which is interesting. The timing of course, what happened on Instagram over the weekend. Yes. The former FBI director is putting out a very
Derek, before you go all full right-wing extremist on us, okay? That was a naturally forming arrangement of shells.
Yeah,
they just washed up beautifully.
Do you remember? Do you remember I've gone to some beaches in the US. They're not very nice ones, I must say. Like Venice Beach, everyone goes on about how awesome Venice Beach is.
Yeah.
Leave your shoes on. Just wear a hazard suit.
Okay.
But he's just wandering along the beach, and he just comes across this 86-47 shell formation.
Yes,
And last year, he just happened to stumble across a Vote Harris sticker. Nothing sus.
Nothing sus.
Now,
the beach has become such a political space. I mean, let's face it.
absolutely, yeah.
I mean, Derek, you spent a lot of time at the beach.
Biden certainly did.
46% of his presidency was left on the beach.
Exactly. Yeah.
46%.
But Dad, how do we deal with this thing in New York? The AG, Letitia James. I haven't verified this, so perhaps if you can fact check this. But from what I understand, her criminal charges, her defense is being paid for by the taxpayer.
No.
They've rescinded that. They can't.
They have rescinded.
Oh,
Okay.
good to hear. Good to hear.
That's outrageous.
What a fabulous woman she is. I'll tell you what, she is the one who stands up for democracy stronger than any of us.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
no doubt about that.
He is such a fraud. Such a fraud.
A fraud, exactly, on so many levels. And you know what? Okay, if you filled in a little bit of paperwork a little bit wrong, I'm not going to lose sleep over that. You know,
A little bit wrong. You know, I've never filled out paperwork and accidentally said that I was screwing my mother. Right?
Okay,
Like I've never done, even for a loan application. I've never like, oh yeah, my mother and I romantically,
That would be your brother.
Shaq,
I know I'm not a
Shaq.
child, but she's
Shaq.
actually put it on there that she was married to her father.
Oh, look, for the right interest rate, Jack.
Hey, is she from Alabama?
That's right. No, she might have been hanging around too long with Malia.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I don't remember.
Oh, dear.
What's her name? That
You've lost me.
Married her
Kiss
brother.
Rock.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I know who you talk about. Like, Imam.
Eliane.
Omar something or other.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah,
Maybe she's hanging around with her too long.
could be.
Could be. These Democrats, the Democrats will have a whole different sense of what propriety is, right?
The Democrats don't know what a woman is.
What is a woman?
They don't
They
know
don't
what
know.
it is.
They don't understand economics. They've got one solution. All centre-left parties, I've noticed, have got one solution to every one of the world's problems.
That's
Raise
great.
taxes.
It's very easy to. I mean, my life would be a lot simpler if I was on the left.
No
Right?
doubt about it.
Because any problem that you brought up, I'd be able to solve it. Right? All you need to do is increase taxes. That's it.
It does.
Any problem. Climate
you know what?
change, increase taxes.
Oh, yeah. Look, it improves the weather. No question about
Social
that.
inequity, increase
Oh.
taxes. Education is not working, increase taxes. Healthcare is not, you got ramping in hospitals, that's increased taxes. I mean, it's a solution for every problem that they come across.
I've got a little saying, just winding back a little bit on the fact of what is a woman, okay? Something was said to me many years ago, which I've taken on as gospel, right? Okay? And it's called, but it's got a new meaning in today's world that it didn't have back in the day, and that's check the neck, okay? So if it's got an Adam's apple these days, okay. Back in the old days, you could tell a woman's age a lot by their neck. Now I'm looking for an Adam's apple. It's a whole different thing.
Well,
I don't know
Aaron,
how
I
you-
have to tell you, you can check something else.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know how
Well,
he.
not if they've had it cut.
I generally check other bits of anatomy.
Mine's
And
a 3-stage program. Okay.
Travis, even if it's been stitched,
Just
I won't go
ask
any
Ellen.
further there. But let me just say, it is not a believable thing when you see them. It's atrocious.
Oh, dear.
I'll send you some pictures later.
Please don't. Please don't.
No, please don't. Like, seriously.
forget
Like, preserve my virgin eyes.
It's
Like,
the stuff of nightmares. Don't
no.
worry.
no, I really don't want to
It's
see
crazy.
it.
I can't believe, honestly, if you've ever asked me 20 years ago if I'd be sitting here with a bunch of intelligent fellas talking about this, about what is a woman and the ridiculous all carry on about it, I would have thought you're talking fantasy. But that's the left. That's what they brought to
But
us.
you know what? We've started to see some common sense. I mean, the UK, the High Court in the UK,
Yep.
actually said that women, the definition of women is
Yes.
based on biology,
Correct.
which I really wasn't expecting that from the UK.
No.
Because remember, one of the things that I've whinged about for years is that the Chief Justice of the Family Court in the UK said the demise of the nuclear family unit
Yes.
is not something to be mourned, but something to be celebrated.
I remember that. Yeah.
And when I read that quote, I was just like,
Well,
are you getting divorced tomorrow? Oh, pop the champagne. I mean, your kids are going to be split between different houses. Oh, fantastic.
Well, sadly, that's what it comes to in some situations,
look.
divorce parties.
I've had one. No, I've
Yeah.
had one. I had a divorce party. I absolutely did.
Yeah,
My
but your
ex-wife-
missus was batshit crazy.
exactly. It wasn't exactly harmonious, but there you go.
He meant that with kindness.
No. He meant that with accuracy. Literally.
But when I used to own the pub in Scarborough,
Yeah.
there was a bunch of women that came in one time, and they were celebrating, one, her divorce, and two, that she was going in for the big A word a few days later.
Oh.
And I was like, you're celebrating that? I don't.
I
just don't get it.
I get that, and changing tack on subjects. I mean, on the big A, I met a woman once who had 7 of them, and she was treating it like it was just something normal.
It's a contraceptive, basically.
Yes,
Badge of honor.
and we're not
badge of honor.
We stopped being friends that day. I couldn't believe that the pride. Yeah. I mean, I know pride these days is a whole different meaning, but like back then, I couldn't get over it. She was just, basically, I've got my revolving ticket there. And another one, I get a free coffee almost.
Look, I don't like the right wing or the conservative viewpoint on this, where it's so heavily restricted that doctors may be afraid to perform the procedure.
Yeah, I get that.
Because there are things that can go wrong. There are, a pregnancy can get complicated, and sometimes this is the best way to solve a medical issue or something like that.
Agreed.
Other times, the baby might be viable, but it's going to have a really painful short life, and the parents might say, look, it's not worth doing. And I think it's very hard to put yourself in their position. So I think that they should have a choice. But if you're doing it just because it's inconvenient, that's terrible.
Oh, look, if you waited for the right time to become a parent, you'd never become a parent.
Yeah.
Everybody goes, I want to have this amount of money in the bank, yada, yada. I want to be in this relationship.
Well, I made that mistake in my 20s.
So I have to jump in here as someone in the situation that Shaq just described.
Yeah.
I think a lot of regarding the A word, people think the A word is a problem. It's actually a symptom of a problem, of the poor education these people have actually had in relations to the damage it actually does to the body. Because if you keep doing it, you just absolutely destroy your insides, and you can't, when you actually decide, right, I want to settle down, want to have the kids, you can't. Like they don't understand how damaging it is.
Yeah.
So I hate to agree with you on that one, Dan, but I do.
They're morally bankrupt. Yeah, they're morally bankrupt.
But I'm talking about like with these pregnancies that are, that are like on the fallopian tube and like things like that, where something's just
Edward syndrome.
Yeah, that's medical necessity. I mean, seriously.
People have to make choices, and I'm just a little bit afraid, like with the United States and some of those, southern states, that there's the potential that doctors are going to say, look, we have to perform this procedure, but I'm not going to do it because I'm afraid I could get prosecuted. And I think that is an issue. I'm not going to defend abortion. I'm never going to defend abortion. But I would say that there are circumstances where I think it's medically necessary.
And I agree. There are particular situations where it is the best option. Yeah. It's a hard option to take. It's nobody.
You might find this as a surprise, but that's Utah's perspective. Yeah. Medically necessary.
It really has been the Christian, even the Catholics. That's been their position.
The problem is definition of when it is necessary. When you go down that slope, right? If you make an allowance, you go down the slippery slope of when that is. And I have seen people get healed of cancers. I've seen people get healed of stuff. So there is the supernatural in this as well. Now I know this is outside the constraints of medical world and all that sort of stuff, but I mean, who are we to be God? That's kind of where I'm at.
Well, it's not really our role.
And now you're going to force me to defend something I don't want to defend. but I'm just going to say this. When you say who are we to be God? So I think all of us, especially when we talk about freedom, we don't want government to tell us what to do.
No.
So when it comes to this issue, whilst I may vehemently disagree with something, it kind of has to be that person's choice. You have to some things have to be their choice.
Yeah, well, that's because you're a libertarian. That's where you're coming from. That's
it's interesting that in Roe v. Wade, Rehnquist's dissent focused on the insular rights of the child. Who has more insular rights? Who is the one that can least defend himself? It's the unborn child. Mm-hmm. And then the question is, when is life conceived and when is their life and all that, right? So, Rehnquist was right on line. In fact, many liberal commentators said that Rehnquist was right in his analysis of it because the child's rights are not protected. But when is a child a person, right?
But Dan, then you go down a good friend, a good Catholic friend, a lawyer over in Georgia, who says, what's that Supreme Court case that deals with
the
condoms?
recent one,
No, the old one that deals with the names of the no, not Roe. So is it Griswold? Griswold v.
Griswold v. Connecticut,
Yep. Is that the condom one where they were saying whether condom should be legal or not?
Right. So when we start talking about when life begins, I mean, if you go to the sort of Puritan, Catholic view on this, that you shouldn't even use protection.
Right.
I mean, I think ultimately we have to be prepared to accept that if we want freedom for ourselves, then we have to be prepared to accept that other people are going to live their lives and make decisions that we're not necessarily going to agree with. That's my view. And I've had this conversation a lot when I've been in the United States. Here, generally, most states of Australia, children are allowed to drink with their parental permission.
Oh, are they?
Right?
Okay.
Especially in their own home. Yeah. It depends on where
I didn't know that one.
It depends on what state you're in.
Okay.
But like at home and stuff.
That's what state I'll end up in.
They're allowed to have a drink. Now, in Europe, it's very common. Like a 7 or 8 year old kid will be at a restaurant, and their parents will let them have a sip of wine.
Okay.
Now, I'm not saying you're going to get your kid pissed, but they can have a sip of wine. Now, me personally, I actually, if I'm ever blessed and have blessed with children, I personally, as long as it's legal, I would let them drink, but not heavily. But if they're going to have a sip of wine or something, like out of my glass, my wife's glass, or something like that. Like that wouldn't bother me because I'd rather them know what it's like and not be curious and then get to 18 and blow that off, right?
Yeah.
Now I can't imagine in a million years, Derek, letting kids have a sip of wine.
No,
right?
No.
Like that's not going to happen.
Yeah, but communion, perhaps.
I need the blood of Christ. That is all right. But my point is that I think that if you want to have freedom, if what we are saying is that we want freedom for ourselves. We have to allow other people to live their lives and make choices that we may not necessarily agree with.
Look, I think it's simple. There are some things that you're free to do, and there's some things that you may not be beneficial to do.
Sure,
even though you're free to do it. And I think that's where it kind of falls. Like, I don't have an issue with people drinking. If that's what they choose to do, that sort of stuff. We saw in Prohibition that it didn't work in terms of banning it, going to the other extreme.
That's right.
But the personal decision that I make for my life in terms of drinking is going to be different from someone else. Now, I have found it really fascinating. I choose not to drink, but I found it really fascinating, not in recent years, but going way back in the early 20s and all that. People would really question me on my choice not to drink. And I'm going, I don't question you on your choice to drink. So why do you throw it back at me on that?
We've had this guy. You and I are very close friends, and people that maybe don't know that from the audience. We've had conversations about alcohol and things like that. I haven't like, I'm not like questioning you. Yeah, why don't you drink? Like,
no, that's why I talked about not in recent years.
Yeah.
Disclaimer.
I'm going back decades. And I used to notice that in my 20s and 30s. I mean, and there were people like in my church circles as well, going, well, why don't you drink? And there was kind of this pressure to drink. I'm like, I don't want to. It's my personal choice.
Well, I would never pressure someone to do it. I won't even say that.
Yeah. Go.
Shaq, I just want to bring it back to. I just had a thought going back to the condom things and all that sort of stuff, and should it be legal or not? Just out of curiosity, if that did pass, do you think Crocs and Cybertrucks would get banned as well because they're a form of contraception?
Mate, I think the biggest form of contraception for a male is to become a Democrat or a lefty, right? Become a feminist male. I want to ask you about that. You mentioned prohibition, and this is probably a question I'll ask for the panel, shall we call it. So Dan doesn't agree with me on this as far as I can recall. I personally believe that drugs should be legal. Now, if you made drugs legal, I'm not going to run down to the pharmacy and go, Chemist Warehouse, listen, mate, can you shoot me up some heroin?
Yep.
Right? Can you shoot me? I don't even know how you do meth.
Can I get a bag of black jelly beans while I'm here as well?
However you take meth, I don't know if you inject it or what. I don't know. But I'm not going to go down to Chemist Warehouse and go, Hey, or Angus, what's it? Angus Robertson? No, that's a bookstore.
What's that other?
Do they still
What
exist?
sort of chemist are you going to?
God, that'd make Harry Potter a lot more exciting.
Like, I'm going to go down there and be like, oh, look, I'm going to have some meth. But I think that it should be legal. And if you have a look at what's happening with cigarettes in this country, right? Do you know how much I paid for this packet of cigarettes?
Don't pull it out for God's sake.
So I'll just put the warning. I'll just put the warning
Put the
label
warning
up.
up. Okay.
Right, smoking kills.
Right, smoking kills.
Do you know how much I paid for that? That's a pack of 20s.
$60.
Yeah,
Nice.
$65.
Oh, I made that up. Okay, there we go.
$65 for a
No
pack of
way.
20s, right?
Yep.
Now, what's happening? I'm not sure what the situation is in Western Australia, but all of New South Wales is everybody's smoking these imported cigarettes that you can get for like $10-$20
Happening in WA big time.
right?
Yeah.
What is the government expecting is going to happen?
Yeah.
Drop the taxes, make it something that's affordable, because people who want to smoke are going to smoke. I know it's bad for me. Let people do it.
Look, as much, and I hate taxes like more than, well, as much as everybody in this building and those two buildings over there. But the reality is, okay, the price of cigarettes going up has stopped a lot of people. I don't like
It's
the
not
way
going
it
to
was
stop
done.
anymore.
It has achieved a lot.
It's not going to stop any more people. We're now at a point where, okay, look, when cigarettes were $40 a packet, right? Now they're $80.
Sure.
Has there been a bigger decrease from $40 to $80?
When I was younger, right, I was the only person in my social group who didn't smoke. It just never really appealed to me. Everybody smoked, and everywhere you go, everybody smoked, and all through the industry, everybody smoked. I don't see that now. Now it's very, very much this one out of the group.
And now what are we seeing? We're seeing young people that one, they're on vapes, but two, it's the same thing when we had the big mining boom here.
Yep.
And alcohol prices went up. What did people do? They switched from alcohol and they switched from cigarettes onto harder drugs.
True.
So look, my point is, people are going to have their vices, right? Now, virtuous people like Derek and Dan maybe don't have the same sort of vices that I've got.
Sure.
Okay. But I should be free to do whatever I want to do. If I want to hurt myself, I should be free to do so.
Yeah.
Right? I don't need government to interfere with it.
But you're right.
So I personally think that drugs should be legal. Now, Reagan and Nancy Reagan, especially with this war on drugs, and look what's happened. Now you've got billions and billions of dollars going to criminal organizations. If it was legal and controlled and taxed, it would be a much better result. So my question is, if you think prohibition with alcohol is a bad idea, would you agree that prohibition of drugs is a bad idea?
Well, I think once you make it legal, you can't go back. It's the tube is outside the toothpaste to some extent.
I don't agree on that one. I think that
what happens when everybody's addicted to this
Well,
stuff?
we did that with alcohol.
But everyone's not addicted to alcohol, are they?
Oh, it causes a lot of social problems.
Exactly. I mean, this is where I think the problem is in terms of that line of thinking, is that it's okay as long as I'm not hurting anybody. Well, the problem is you can be hurting people indirectly. Like I'll give you an example, all right? This is what I've seen. A couple who's having an affair, an adulterous affair. Oh, it's okay if nobody's getting hurt. I tell you who's getting hurt. The kids are getting hurt. The relatives are getting hurt in terms of, sister and brothers and all this sort of stuff because of the embarrassment going on. The people who are getting hurt as a community, suddenly you start to get factions. The factions, we're going with this person, you're going with that person. The community gets hurt. You can't just go, nobody gets hurt. They do. It's indirect results. And I think that kind of philosophy, that's the weakness of that argument.
So I don't have any issue with what you've said there. However, even if I agree, which I do, with everything you've just said, does that mean that we should pass a law making having an affair illegal?
Yeah, Australia already has it.
Because that's the connection there. I'm saying the drugs that people should be able to use. Look, making it illegal, I don't think has stopped drug use. No. When you look at the stats, it's easier if you want to find drugs in any Western country. If you want to find drugs, if you just dropped off in some random place and you want to score, the best place to go to is your local high school. Okay,
or supermarket.
That's in high school.
That's what international law enforcement agencies from all over the Western world will say. If you want to get drugs, the first place you should go to is not to the local pub, but to the local high school. So we know that young people are doing it. We know that, look, all of Sydney's, are awash with cocaine. I think there's meth up in Queensland and South Australia and stuff like that. Like, we know that we've got these massive drug problems. And you look at the United States, the drug problems are not just in the big cities. They've got massive problems with drugs and fentanyl and all that, all through rural America. If it was legal, it could be more controlled. We could help people that have got addiction problems, etc. Has making it illegal, has that helped?
No.
I don't think it has. I think it's added a lot of money to
I think the fact that it's illegal is actually a deterrent, right? Because you've got some people who want to abide by the law, and you've got to recognize that. Suddenly, if you take the law away, hey, it's okay. I mean, how far are you going to go? It's illegal to murder someone. Oh, well, should we actually make that law? Or should we just...
There's a big difference between suggesting someone should be able to have a line of coke and somebody should be able to kill someone.
Hang on a second. No, wait. We started this conversation about ending the life and terminating the life of babies.
Yes.
And we're making rules on this and saying it should be right, shouldn't right. You guys were all being judgment on that. Then I say we shouldn't make murder illegal. And you go, oh, well, we're not going to do that. Where do you draw the line? Because once you go down this slippery slope of starting, well, it's okay on this occasion. Well, it's okay on that occasion. It's like you keep making exceptions. And then suddenly the floodwaters, you got social scenes around you. They're not the same anymore. And you're wondering why kids are having problems, families are breaking down. It's because you let all this stuff into your community.
But now I'm going to sound like some left-wing nut job, but hey, we already make exceptions for murder. We've got the death penalty, not in Australia, we've got the death penalty in the United States. We go to war, we kill people all the time. Since when have we as a society ever actually said that human life is sacred?
Going to war to defending your border is murder. I don't think you'd classify that as murder.
Not the same.
Is Australia defending?
Sorry, I want to hear Dan's perspective.
Is Australia defending
I want to hear Dan's perspective on it because he has a military perspective on that.
Okay. Listen, this whole discussion is ridiculous. Seriously. I mean, it's all about public virtue, and the idea is that you can have no free society without public virtue, without having a balance between the morals of our society and the rights and responsibilities of freedom, right? So that's the thing, and that's the problem. That's what our founders in the United States believed. The reason we have such a moral conundrum in the United States and our society and our culture and our systems are failing is because of the immorality of a large number of people who are doing things that they shouldn't be doing. It's not smart, it's not good for their families, it's not good for the social order, it's stupid. And so if we encourage stupidity by making it legal, okay, we're going to make stupidity legal. So all the old people that want to be stupid, we're making it legal. So go and do whatever you want to do and blow the hell out of your life and everybody else is around you. That's not the answer, Shaq. There has to be ordered liberty. The idea behind the Constitution of the United States and behind the laws of the United States is this concept of ordered liberty. And by the way, that was one of the things that Justice Harlan said in the dissenting opinion in Griswold v. Connecticut, right? We have this idea of ordered liberty, and so I'm not agreeing with that. The decision in Griswold was wrong. Surely people should be able to decide, whether to use contraceptives or not. That's an overreach by the government. It isn't. The abortion issue is different, right? Because you've got the life of the innocent child, and the decision by the consenting parties has already been made. Okay, so, all right, we decided to screw like bunnies. Fine. Now we have to deal with the consequence of that choice, right? So now we've made our choice. What about the child? Do we need to protect the child under the law? All right. So you want to go and be able to buy your cocaine and be able to do whatever you want.
No, hang on. I don't do drugs, so don't direct that at me.
Okay. So, but you're arguing for a public policy that would permit it. It's not worked anywhere where it's legal. It's not worked anywhere. Not in the Netherlands, not anywhere. You got a bunch of druggies. You got corruption in your society. It does not work for social order and justice. Doesn't work. It encourages crime. I mean, just imagine we got enough problems in our minority neighborhoods without putting that explosive device within it and making bigger problems. No, that's definitely not the way to govern.
That's not the case in Amsterdam, Dan. That's not the case in Amsterdam. You say that you've got big crime problems in minority areas in the United States. Absolutely, you do. And a big part of that is because of the gangs making lots of money out of what? Out of drugs, prostitution, human trafficking, etc. Okay. Now, you say that we have to have ordered liberty. Let me tell you the problem with ordered liberty. When our side of politics is in charge, we generally agree with what our governments do. We go, yes, fantastic. What happens when the other side gets in charge? So right now in Australia, you've got people that are going to the bank. They go to make a withdrawal, right? You can hardly get money from ATMs anymore. You had to go into the branch. Now, I remember this is about 2 years ago.
Right.
I remember going out. I wanted to get like 10 or 15 grand out. And I had no good reason to give the bank. So I just told them the truth. I said, I'm going out gambling.
Yeah, okay.
I'm going to go put it through the pokers and just blow it. Right?
How'd they feel about that?
They gave me the money.
There you go.
Right?
And then they reported you to the government.
So, well, they probably did.
No,
but,
they would have. No,
you know,
that's exactly how it works.
But here's the thing. Now, people are trying to take $1,000 out. They can't get it.
I know.
And why, Dan? Because the government wants to look after everybody. Because the government wants to make sure that you don't do something stupid with your money.
Well, there's a difference between that and the argument I was making. You guys are a socialist country. You're so regulated that your ass is so tight you can't even stick anything in it.
Dad,
Unless you're in Melbourne.
This is coming from somebody in America who's Declaration of Independence. The preamble to the Declaration of Independence says to secure the general welfare of the people. You guys are more socialist than we've ever been.
Oh, no, that's not what it means. What you try to do is attribute the preamble to something that is constitutionally not correct. Because the whatever was reserved for the states, the federal government was supposed to be a government of limited power, not general power.
Supposed to be.
Exactly. That's my point. And so this whole idea of there's a tension between states' rights and federal government rights. Federal government has gone amok, and the central intelligence agencies, everything is so damn corrupt. Are leaving the walk. Now Trump's trying to do something about that. We'll see what happens.
So I want to jump in on this one.
The 10th Amendment. I think the 9th Amendment is far more important. That's what people should be talking about more, is the 9th Amendment, which is individual people's rights. Okay. But again, what I will say is, I think that if we want freedom, we have to allow freedom for people who are going to make decisions we don't agree with. And I'm going to stand by that.
I'll regret this decision. Travis, what's your opinion?
So I love to quote a friend of the station, Mr. Warren Black here. He says you've got to understand the system that you're actually a part of. So in Australia, drugs are bad. Like, I love quoting South Park here. So if you want to live in a system where drugs are totally legal, then relocate yourself to the Netherlands. If you want to live in a country where the government has absolute 100% control of your life, relocate to Australia. If you want a country where there's a constitution where they actually give you the rights to the point where it's just a part of your life, you can't take it away, then you relocate to America. So having this argument running around, American system's better, Australian system's better. No, they're different. Not one is better than the other, because every person is going to be different. So if you don't want to live in the system that you're in, then move. If you can afford to buy illegal drugs, you can afford to move to a different country.
You've done that. I'm doing that. I've advocated for that. Right? How many times have I said to you guys, let's just go somewhere else. We've got more freedom. Let's move to Afghanistan. We've got a bit more freedom, right? It's fine. No.
So maybe Syria now. It looks like they're getting better.
Right.
Dan, let's put this in perspective,
right? Get away with it.
Who's going to mess with us if we're living in Afghanistan? They've got more military equipment than most countries on earth.
And they all got it for free.
Yeah, well, you could get away with it, but I don't think any of these other guys could get away with it. They're too white.
I'll have to grow a beard. I'll have to.
Hey, I'm not white. I'm pink. Thank you very much.
We all agree. I think we all agree. Yeah, you can move, but that's not the point. What really breaks my heart is seeing how much we have devolved. I mean, with Albo being in charge, and let's be fair, right? He's whatever you think of the election, he's won it fair and square.
He's a simple man. He came from public housing. Single mum.
Yeah, I know. and they exempted themselves from the superannuation capital gains tax. Brilliant.
Oh, beautiful.
It's like Kamala came from public
he's
housing,
won this election, right? So he has the right to lead Australia down the toilet. That's what he chooses to do. But that's the system we've got. That doesn't mean that we should stop advocating for the things that we want. And what I want is government out of my life. I don't want government to tell the banks that they've got to check to see what I'm doing with my bloody money.
But okay, we're kind of winding back on this. Okay, this comes down to, we were talking about laws and ethics and your, who you are as a person. Okay, this is whether you make having an affair illegal. Some of us are just born with the ethics that we don't want to have affairs. Right?
I've never ever slept around when I've been in a relationship.
Ever. Boom, same with me, right? And what I'm thinking is society, the way it's sort of degraded now, people really have trouble with morals. Morals have, the fibres of morals have absolutely decayed. And I think that's, as much as I hate government, and I do with a passion, but maybe the laws are just a way of sometimes stemming that moral code.
No, you're still treating the symptom. You're not treating the cause of it. It's a breakdown in the family unit and the education system.
Yeah.
So it's agree with that. And that's a generational repair. But it's you've got to start at home, where the parents have to take responsibility on the kids. They got to call the schools into account for what they're teaching the kids. And if the schools are not going to teach the kids correctly, then pull them out. Again, it goes back to that system. You're in a system, pull them out if it's not the wrong system.
A lot of parents can't afford to do that. That's firstly. And secondly, disciplining your kids. You try disciplining your kids, all of a sudden, I'm not saying get the belt out and belt. I don't know whether you ever got belted. I got belted when I was a kid.
Yeah, right? I'm still running.
I think I'm 41. My mother still hits me with the wooden spoon from time to time, and she's a little tiny woman. But I never got belted, but
got smacked.
Never got beaten up, is what I mean. But you can't do that. No. Now they're saying, "Oh, you give your kid a timeout." That's abuse.
Yeah.
Right. So it's one thing to say parents are supposed to discipline the kids, but when the parents aren't allowed to, what are they supposed to do?
You can't discipline your children anymore. It is against the law.
Absolute bullshit.
In this country,
bullshit. There's yes, Australian father here.
Yes.
2 amazing kids because they know the rules, they know the regulations. Again, you don't need to beat the shit out of your kid to discipline them, but there's ways to do it. There's always a way to do something. So kids, literally, they just want, and it's a good point there, they want fun. So start not buying an iPad and just letting them sit on the iPad for 20 hours a day. Exaggeration, but there's always a way to work within the system and do things. And the kids know, if they come home and I say, right, go have a shower in 5 minutes, they know they have to have a shower in 5 minutes. Otherwise they're going to start losing stuff to the green closet, which is the wheelie bin. They're big and green. And so one of the things is they weren't getting off the iPad. I said, you got one chance. Otherwise I'm putting it in the bin. No. So I grabbed the iPad and I put it in the bin.
Yeah, but Travis, that's great, but the issue is that if your kids went to school and said to the teacher that you threatened to take something from them and throw it away, you could expect a call from child protection.
No. I'll be very nice.
Okay, now hang on. Now you might be confident enough to deal with that, but most parents are going to shit themselves if they have to deal with that sort of thing. Right? They're going to deal with child protection or somebody coming over. So what parents do is they just step back. And let me just say this. I think that for society to blame parents, let's look at things. You have your kids until they're 4 or 5. After that, they start going to school. When the kids get 13, 14, 15, they're their own people, right? They don't want to know you're too old, etc. That's what we were all like, right? Oh. So really, from the age of about 5 to 14, 15, how much time do you actually spend with them? You go to work, you come home.
I'm the wrong person to ask that question to.
Not you or Derek, because you guys school your kids differently. So for most people, their kids go to school, right? Then they've got extracurricular activities. They've got after-school activities. They've got sports on Saturdays or Sundays, etc. How much time do you actually have with your kids? You come home from work at 6 o'clock, you cook dinner. Maybe your kids will eat dinner at the dinner table. They're probably not. They're going to either eat it in front of their TV or they're going to eat it in front of their iPad while they're talking to their friends on Facebook. Okay? How much time do parents actually have with their kids compared to how much time the government, as in the school system, has with your kids?
No, it's a great point.
No. So I agree with that situation. I don't think but the question is here, so you had 9 months to plan for the delivery of that child. Because that's how long it takes. Or let's say 6 months. You would have known how much that kid is going to cost. You know how much time that kid's going to take. So it's a responsibility of the parents. This is, again, where Dan was saying, the 2 people did the deed. Now they have to deal with the responsibility of it.
Right.
Their job is to raise that child the best that they can. And I think what's happening is people have lost the emphasis of that's your kid. It's not the government's kid. It's your kid. You are ultimately responsible for that child. And what's happening is because there's people in society who have gone, oh, no, the government will deal with it. The government will deal with it. So they're just handing over the kid to the... We're just the birthing parent. and the government has taken over. I think that's where the failure was, and the parents allowed the government to take over a position which should never have been theirs in the first place, and the parents need to be responsible.
Wasn't it Hillary Clinton who said it takes a village, and that philosophy started to slip into the psyche there? Well, how far does a village go? If the village turns bad, the village becomes run by crooked people. Well, no, stuff the village. I'm leaving the village.
You've got to leave the village. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, you got to do that.
Again, I'm going to throw personal issues in here, but this is important because it's real, right? Okay, I had my children taken away, and the fundamental thing that started me on the journey of losing my children was my daughter, my stepdaughter, was caught watching porn at school on her iPad. I confiscated her iPad, and it cost me my family. That's how much. That's how much the government own your children. Yes, the school contacted me to tell me. They sent me an email saying that she'd been caught watching porn in Mandarin class, right? And that,
to be fair, I think I prefer watch porn than let Mandarin.
So the $1 million question: was it Asian porn?
It's good to make light of it because it's a heavy thing. No. I know. I'm with you 100%.
I'll talk to you about this off camera because I didn't know that.
Yeah. So So where I'm going in this is the school anyway. So I confiscated her iPad because I believe that's her currency, right? So that's not a smack. That's not hard discipline, whatever. I took the iPad away. The school then contacted me and said that I was basically damaging her education, her opportunity for education, because she didn't have her iPad. My point was, hang on. As a school, you said that you had iPads that you could give to the children for, those who couldn't afford it. The school that my kids went to was in an area with very mixed socioeconomic sort of backgrounds, okay? And we were told that there would be spare iPads. Not all parents, I mean, we were lucky, we were in a position to, but to buy our kids a $900 iPad to go to school. I took it away from her for 2 weeks, and ultimately that decision was the catalyst for me losing my children, and a $250,000 fight to try and get my children back. All of that. That was their choice. They own our kids, and that's why I'm looking at two people in this room, so to speak, with Travis and Derek. The choice to homeschool is the smartest thing you will ever do in your entire life.
True.
The smartest thing I ever did was get my kids out of Australia. So that was the catalyst why I left Australia. I saw what was happening. I saw how much control the Labor government and even the Liberals were giving up on this situation, and I refused to raise my kids in Australia.
The other day, like I said about that conversation, or the conversations I was having at that event I was at, I was talking to this young fella who's in medicine, right? And he's just doing all these final exams. And the first question in the exam, for a medical exam, right, okay, for becoming a doctor, guess what the first question is?
What is
Have you done your Aboriginal studies?
What's your pronoun?
What? No. Well, it is, are you of Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander background?
I refuse.
How is that possible?
I refuse to answer that question. And do you guys remember?
He was told if he didn't answer it, because he actually questioned it, so good on him. He was told that he would basically probably fail because there's so much weight on that question. Yeah.
So I've gone to play because I've got an Australian accent. There's a lot more Indians now, so people tend to pick me as being an Indian, but they never used to.
Right.
So the amount of times people would say, "Are you Aboriginal?" and I would go, "I refuse to answer the question." And they don't know what to do, right? Now they're like, well, okay, you're an Indian. But like back then, But I just want to come back a little bit on the parent thing. Now, Travis, I don't disagree with you. I think that people should go to other places. In fact, I've said to the left in the past, if you hate Australia or you hate the US so much you're burning the flag, why don't you leave? Move to China, move to North Korea. They'll probably take you if you feel that way, right? My parents moved to Australia in search of a better life. If you hate Australia so much, if you think we're an irredeemably racist, horrible country, go somewhere where you think is better. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So I've gone, you know what? I don't like the direction the country's going in. I'm moving. Yeah. Right? Travis is gone. But we can't expect 25 million people to leave.
No, it's tempting.
What I'm going to say about the comments you guys just made, I think that parents should be able to rely on the government. It sound like I'm being left, but just hear me out. When people have kids, they expect that, hey, from the age of 5 to 16, 17, the kid's going to be at school 5 days a week, most weeks of the year, right? And they're going to be getting a good education. They're going to be, right? So we rely on these services the same way as we rely on, hey, you know, if you break your leg, you call an ambulance, you expect to be able to be in hospital. You don't expect to be sitting out in an ambulance being ramped for 3 hours.
12
right?
hours,
Well, it depends on which hospital.
Yeah.
It depends if you've got private health insurance or
no,
not.
no, it doesn't. It's worth it. Mate, look, I'm on a free waiting list at the moment for an operation.
But you know what I mean, right? You expect for those services to be provided. Now, we as a society collectively pay for those services. As far as I am concerned, when those services are not being delivered to us, that's fraud. If you give me $50 to go down to the bottle shop and buy you a carton of, I don't even know what you buy with $50, but to buy your one beer, right? One VB, right? If I just run away with your $50, I've either stolen that money or I've committed fraud or something like that.
No,
right?
I just assume you work for the government.
So when the government does that, when the government takes our money and tells us that they're going to spend it providing certain things and those things are not provided for, it's a fraud, is it not?
I can't argue.
No,
with
because
that.
it's the government. So that you raised a very good point, Shaq. So what happens? There's no financial assistance for any homeschooling parents. The only thing that happens if you do get Centrelink payments of any like parenting allowance payments, family tax benefit A and B, normally you've got to show, oh yeah, I've looked for 20. I've gone to 20 interviews this quarter or this month. I can't remember what it is. The only benefit to homeschooling is you don't have to do that because you're solely responsible for the kids. You get no additional financial assistance, and you've got to pay for everything yourself. So Luan actually found this report to send a kid to school. Apparently, it costs taxpayers about $40,000 a year. $40,000, but yet nothing goes to homeschoolers.
I've been saying this for so many years. Milton Friedman says, have a school voucher program. Yeah. If you don't want the parents to have the money, give them the voucher. Let them spend it the way they want. Can you imagine?
School books, education programs, all that sort of stuff.
Private tutoring for your kids.
Wow. Look, I hear a lot of that sort of thing as far as Trump's been talking about that as far as paying for homeschooling. I think it's a very positive thing.
Yeah. So I just want to take it further. Just one moment. There's more to this one. So what Shaq was saying, like about the contract, you give the kids $50 to go buy your beer, then they run away. So with the education system, whoever, whatever. You tell where I grew up, can't you? Anyway, so what happens is if you are in a contract with a business to deliver a service, so let's use the education, for example, you want that school to teach your kid how to read, how to write, how to do maths, how to do science, how to do geography. Are you expecting them to brainwash your kids into political ideology?
Not
That's not a part of the contract. That's what was added after the contract was agreed to.
So it's
that is what I disagree with. This
is what we have such an issue with now, right? We've got them going into Catholic schools and trying to like force the Catholics to teach stuff that is totally against the Catholic schools' beliefs.
Contraception.
No. I know someone. I'm not going to say a name because there's a lawsuit. He actually got paid out on this one. He was a new male teacher into a religion. I'm not going to say what the denomination was, but into a religious school. He has run for parliament in the past, and what happened is one of his comments was against the LGBTQ community, saying that it shouldn't be in the schools, blah, blah, blah. The religious school fired him for those comments that he made years before he got the job.
Wow.
Look, that Catholic school down in, I think it was Melbourne, it could have even been Sydney, I think it was Melbourne, where the girls were told to take their crosses off, that they weren't allowed to wear.
What?
Yeah, they had like a lot of girls had little necklaces with little crosses on, right?
Yep.
They were told they weren't allowed to wear them whilst other kids at the school were able to wear pride stuff and trans stuff, right? Like, what are you doing? Now, look, we all have slightly separate interpretations of the Bible. Okay, now half of my family are Muslim. I grew up Anglican, so I'm a little bit confused.
I've always thought you're confused.
Yeah, like I'm non-binary between Christian and Islam, right? But I
hang it to the left,
interpret things a little bit differently, and I struggle with that a bit because I'm not sure, right? But whatever my beliefs are, what I know is I'm not a Mormon, right?
Correct.
Dan's a Mormon. I'm not the same religion as Derek. We believe very similar stuff, but we have interpretational differences. I would never, if I had the power to, I would never demand or insist that Dan's children or grandchildren or Derek's children learn my belief system, right? If I'm going to teach them maths, English, science, and like all that, cool. But my belief system, social values, that's the parents' job.
Hang on, then you've just defined the difference between conservatism and being on the left.
Exactly. And that's the problem that I see with the government, and that's the problem that I see with government control. And to go back to, because I just want to win this argument because I'm in that sort of mood, that's why I think the drugs should be legal, because if you're really a conservative and
on that note, we're now time to wrap up. No.
You should let people do whatever the hell they want to do.
Oh, look, the drugs are good. And there's no aphrodisiac.
So what that we have to do is, because we've just ticked over 1 hour, Aaron, we've just ticked over 1 hour. So should we give Dan the closing statement, and then we will swing back for the next hour for Shaq to go on a rant?
Let's do it. Over to you, Dr. Dan.
Don't do drugs, no matter what Uncle Shaq says. He's wrong.
Drugs are bad, okay.
Now listen, Shaq doesn't do drugs because he's not stupid. Don't be stupid. Shaq's smart. Don't be stupid, because it's like shooting yourself in the head. I believe in freedom and liberty, but I believe in freedom and liberty and also faith in God. You have to tie liberty to faith in order for it to work in our country. I don't know about in the other countries, but I think it's very important for us to have good social mores and values in order to preserve the public virtue of our people, and to promote those things as part of the social network and that kind of thing. I think drugs undermines that, destroys families, destroys familiar relationships. It's not good. People that have drug problems have to be rehabilitated and make better decisions and choices. So Shaq's idea of legalizing all the wacky stuff just doesn't work. You just give the government more tax money and more power to screw up our lives. Why would we want to do that?
I almost feel like giving Swami Shaq over here the last word, but we won't do that.
Do you know how hard it was for me not to say anything?
Thanks for being part of the show. Are you ready to hit the button and end the show there, Mr. Katz?
I'll just say this. I'm glad you missed me, Dad. I'm glad that you missed me.
I do.
The recording stopped. No, I'm joking.
Love you, brother.
Yes, with every shot so far. But anyway, okay. Thanks for being part of Freedom Fridays here at Edge Radio Australia.